Thank you, Mr. Ramakant. Thank you for inviting me here. And this is a wonderful opportunity to, know something that I had no clue about. So thank you very much. Dr. Jayesh Ranjan, Secretary, TSIIC, Sri B.V. Paparao Garu, Advisor to the State Government, and Mr. Shimano, all the friends and I'm not too sure, I know Indophile is the word. I'm not too sure what a person who loves Japan is called. What's it? Anybody? I'm sure all of you are all lovers of Japan and the culture of Japan, so I'll just stick to that. And all my friends from the media as well. Japan lovers. That doesn't sound very good, but nevertheless. Yeah, all the patrons of JCAC, let's put it that way. All the patrons and supporters and friends of JCAC and friends of Ananda and Ramakant and Chakrapani Garu. A warm welcome to all of you. First thing that struck me was the sort of effort Shimano was trying to put in, to connect, to actually tell us what he thinks and how highly he thinks of Hyderabad and how highly he thinks of our culture, which I think is a refreshing and a wonderful thing. Because, if a gentleman from Japan is so much in love with Hyderabad, I think we should take it very, very seriously as well. And in fact, we should promote more arts, more culture, more, more of the literary things in Hyderabad, in our own Hyderabad. In fact, the other thing that struck me when he was speaking is, I was remembering that movie. I think we all loved it, for a variety of reasons, of course, but Lost in Translation. I think it was one of those movies which really leaves you, which really stays, with you for a very, very long period of time. I think it was a lovely movie, and in fact, when he was speaking and when Mr. Chakrapani was doing his best, to bring in that same fervor and emotion and, the same sort of, expression. I think that's what really struck me, how much he really is an Indophile, how much he was just telling me that he was here 38 times, which I think is fantastic because I'm not too sure if I've been outside the country. I've come back to India 38 times myself. So I think he's really, really in love with the culture here and really wants to do something, and really appreciate Ramakant Garu and Mr. Shimano for actually taking the time and effort to make this happen. When we all think of Japan, I think there are three things that immediately come to our mind. I think one thing that really we all need to think of is the fact that the word that really I think epitomizes, defines Japan is resurgence. We all know how badly they were affected right after the World War, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and the sort of trauma they all went through as a country. And even today, if you look at it, Japan is a country which we see frequently on televisions, in the comforts of our own bedrooms and drawing rooms. Japan is a country which repeatedly is affected by tsunamis, but nevertheless they're so resurgent, they're so strong. They bounce back every single time they're struck with something or the other. In fact, they're always, we always keep hearing about tsunamis, earthquakes, and how Japan has tried to overcome all these natural forces and how they still, stand the ground and ensure that they've grown as a country by leaps and bounds. I think they define precision, they define perfection. If you think electronics, if you think automobiles, I don't think Japan has a match. Anybody, for example, just the cameras that we were talking about, all Japanese really. So Japan has shown this world really as to what it is that is possible if we really apply ourselves. I think what they've done is significant, and in terms of literature, in terms of culture, in terms of the family structure, family values, there are a lot of synergies between Japan and India. We all know for a fact that they have adopted to Buddhism in a big way. I think Buddhism is a I think the religion in Japan, I think Shintoism and Buddhism, and we all know where that originated from. So there is a strong cultural connect. There is a strong, definite definite synergy that exists. Besides what Jayesh had mentioned, I think in terms of industry, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of a lot of other areas where we could collaborate, I think arts and culture is one area where we could really work together. I appreciate Mrs. Reddy for doing Ikebana every year. I think she does. I've only read about it in the newspapers really, but I really appreciate her for doing that. That's real passion. And I think JCAC, now that it is launched, I think you can really go a long way. You can really help us also as a state, as a country, to really strengthen the relation that we already have with Japan and to take it to that next level. I think when you talk about culture, revival, and a lot of other things, one thing we also need to talk about is obviously our own city and our own culture. Before we start imbibing what's good elsewhere in the world, I think we also need to figure out, and we also need to ensure that we do our best in our own country, our own city to begin with. You just saw how much in love with Hyderabad is this gentleman from Japan. I think as citizens of this wonderful city, as citizens of this city which boasts of a fantastic mix of both old world charm and a new world infrastructure, I think it's a killer combination if you ask me. You have on the one hand a 423-year-old city with some wonderful monuments, wonderful structures, and some wonderful history with it. And on the other hand, you also have this thriving new age information technology hubs and the new age buildings and the new age colonies that have come up really. So I think we really have to find our own feet with regard to our culture. Therefore, in fact, what has been done by this government and our Chief Minister yesterday, I think has been the right step to begin with. We started off taking a departure from the convention of celebrating Independence Day at the usual parade grounds. We've taken it to Golconda. And really, I think I've lived all my life in Hyderabad. I'm 38, and I've never seen so many pictures of Golconda over a spate of a week in all the newspapers. I think really we've really brought a lot of focus back to the Golconda Fort and the magnificent history it represents, and the magnificence of the structure in itself. In fact, I think what has been missing for a long time. Now I think we really can aim at bringing World Heritage status to Golconda as well. And there are a lot more other things that really are very popular about Hyderabad outside of Hyderabad. Unfortunately, not many of us and not many of our kids seem to be aware of it, which is a sorry state of affairs. Therefore, this government, as Papa Rao Garu was saying, is committed, is having a chief minister at the helm of affairs who is himself a person with a literary bent of a mind, a person who appreciates arts, a person who appreciates culture, a person who appreciates heritage. In fact, when our chief minister went to the extent of saying to the metro rail authorities that they should take a relook at, taking a detour or taking the metro rail underground to ensure some of the heritage structures are protected, we got a lot of flack, in fact, for that. We received a lot of flack. We were accused of a lot of things, but I think that just goes to show you, it's a testimony to the fact that this chief minister is a person who values heritage. This chief minister is a person who values the sort of history and tradition that Hyderabad represents. Therefore, what we are also doing simultaneously, we've only been around for about 67, 68 days now, but what we've already started doing is basically, we've started reviving all the literary awards, all the cultural awards. The popular Sahitya Academy is being revived. The Lalit Kala Academy is being revived. Dashrati Award is being revived. So lots of things that have been forgotten in the past are now being brought to the fore and now being brought to the limelight by this government.